Hey guys, Brandon Kowalas here, Director of the Salt Lake Community College Concurrent Enrollment Program. And today, in this episode, we are going to be doing a deep dive into our concurrent enrollment instructor processes. I'm going to walk you through all of our instructor processes from the point of an instructor is interested in teaching concurrent enrollment until they've entered final grades in the SLCC system. We'll walk through our website and how we've used that to enhance the flow of these processes. I'll also give you a tour of some of the computer systems that we use to manage and track these processes. And also we'll take a look at our calendar, our shared calendar that we use to create calendar reminder prompts so that we remember to do certain parts of the process. Because when you've got, tons and tons of different processes going on out there, it's really easy to forget some of the things that you need to do. And then last of all, we'll talk about what do we do, how do we handle those stinkers out there who don't do what they're supposed to do. We're going to be going through all that today, so sit back and get ready. And with that said, let's go ahead and we're going to dive into where this all begins, and that is on the Concurrent Enrollment website on the Course Offerings and Instructor Qualifications page. So let's go ahead and jump over to our website. So typically, when an instructor, a potential concurrent enrollment instructor, is interested in teaching concurrent enrollment, there are questions that they have before they even begin the process. And one of those questions is, what are the classes that I can potentially teach? What are those classes about? And what do they cover? And then what are the requirements for me to teach? All that information is found here on our website. So if I go to the concurrent website at slcc.edu/concurrent enrollment, and then I scroll down here towards the bottom, there's a button called CE Instructors. And when you click on here, on the left-hand navigation, you see a link called Course Offerings and Instructor Requirements. Right here on this page is where they gather all that information. So if I expand out one of these classes here that is available through concurrent enrollment, I can see, first of all, a description, just a brief description of what the course is about. I can see here what high school course this aligns to. So if you remember going back to a previous episode, we talked about the course creation process, how there has to be a college course and a high school course where the curriculum aligns at least 90%. This is where they gather that information. So they can see what high school course it aligns to. They can find out which grades it's approved for. Can 9th graders take this class, or is it open to 11th and 12th graders or 12th graders only? Also, they can find out whether or not this class allows for students to sit in the class who are only earning high school credit, or do all of them who are in the class, are they required to be enrolled both at the college and the high school? We call them mixed classes and pure classes. So this class, for example, requires that all students sitting in the class are receiving concurrent enrollment college credit. And then below that, we can see the instructor qualifications. So before they even begin, they can come here on our website and they can see, do I qualify? Am I interested? If after reading the description here, they say, boy, I'd like to know more information because this doesn't really give me a lot of details about what this course covers, then they can talk to their high school coordinator who can log into their MyCE account. This is our Canusha system. And they can come down to course syllabi. So the coordinator can come here. They can search for that class. So let's search for accounting. And they have the ability to download a sample syllabus and the college's approved course curriculum outline. This gives the instructor all the information that they need to be able to make the decision of whether or not they're interested in applying to teach this class at their high school. And if they are, then they begin the instructor application process. So let's go ahead now and jump back into MyCE and go through this instructor application process. Now, if this is an instructor who has never taught concurrent enrollment through Salt Lake Community College before, then the instructor is going to need to work with their concurrent enrollment coordinator at their school to submit the application, simply because the new instructor doesn't have a MyCE account, so they can't submit applications. On the other hand, if it's an instructor that's been teaching with us for a while and they just want to teach a new class they've never taught before, then they could submit this themselves through their MyCE account. So we're going to walk through as though this is a new instructor who's never taught with this before. So the coordinator is going to go into the instructor applications portal of MyCE. They're going to click on Submit New to submit a new application. And then they're going to fill out this form here, which gives us all of the information that we need. So it includes stuff like the courses they want to teach, how many sections they want, and they're going to need to include the teacher information here from the list. Now, the teacher obviously is not on the list, so they're going to click Not on the List. And then they're going to fill out the new teacher information here. First name, last name, email, birth date, social security number. We need that information so we can set up their SLCC account so that they can be associated with Salt Lake Community College. They'll also include their credential information. Once they fill out this first part of the form and click Submit New Teacher Details, they'll have the ability to upload resumes, transcripts, and anything else. Now, how do they know what it is we need them to upload? Well, that information, right now, it's sort of a work in progress, but back here on the course offerings and instructor qualifications page, we're working on including specifically which documents they need to upload for us. So right here on accounting, for example, it just says they need a master's degree. This is one that we're still working on getting that information for. But if you scroll down to, say, biology, you can see here it has required documents that must be uploaded in MyCE. So cover letter, transcripts, and a curriculum vitae. If we scroll down to math, you'll see a slightly different set of criteria. They have to have the resume and transcripts and CV, but they also need to pass the calculus challenge exam. So as they are submitting the information back here and uploading that, they know what they need to upload so that we have everything we need in order to review and vet that instructor as they go through the hiring process. Okay, now once all that information is submitted, they can come back here to the instructor applications page in MyCE, and they can see a list of all the applications that they've submitted. And they can keep an eye on those and monitor them to see when they're approved or denied or if they're still processing. If an application is denied, they can click on View Application and they can see comments that have been added by the reviewers, whether that's an academic administrator or a high school administrator. Those comments would be included so they can either make updates or they know what they need to do in order to qualify, so maybe they go back and take a couple of classes and then they reapply. That is the instructor application process. So once they've completed the instructor application and they've been approved, then they move over to the onboarding process. So in order to explain this process, I'm going to jump into a process map that we recently created as we were going through and refining and improving our processes, and sort of walk you through step by step, what does the onboarding process look like for a new instructor who's been approved to teach concurrent enrollment. So that said, let's go ahead now and dive into this process map for onboarding. Now, before we dive into the process map, I just wanted to give you sort of a high-level overview of what this looks like. Now, there's a lot of steps here, and you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, please don't go through all of this. We're going to go through all of it, but we're not going to go through it step by step. I'll talk about blocks, and there are some parts of this that are going to be mostly irrelevant. So with that said, let's go ahead now and zoom in and begin walking through the onboarding process. So it all begins back here when the instructor is approved. Once the instructor is approved, we run the instructor application report in MyCE. So let me jump back over to MyCE and I'll show you how that happens. So here in the back end of our Canusha system, MyCE, we go down into reports, we go into the teacher's report, and there's a report called instructor applications. So we'll select the criteria here, and then we'll run the report, and this is what that report looks like. This gives us all of the data from the instructor applications in an Excel sheet that we can then use to perform an email mail merge and send out notifications to all of the new instructors that they've been approved and give them the first steps they need to take in order to get set up in our system. So we use this sheet, and I'll scroll through so you can get an idea of what's on there. So we use this sheet to run the mail merge. Let's go ahead and jump back here. So once we run that, we filter it to remove any ongoing applications and letters that have already been sent. So we can also log that in that spreadsheet, which is wonderful. So that way, if we have any late applications come in, we can just target specifically those for the mail merge. And then we ask the question, does the instructor have an S number? Or have they already been set up as an employee in the college? Because there may be some adjunct faculty who who made the jump over to become a high school teacher and now they want to teach concurrent enrollment. If they do not have an S number, we set them up in the system following these steps, which I'm not going to walk through. If they are, then we open the approval letter mail merge template. We open the instructor applications report and filter only teachers with S numbers. And then we save the updated file on our shared drive that we have here in our office in a teachers folder with today's date. Once that happens, we then perform the mail merge and send all of the approval letters to the instructors. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second. How do we remember to do this? Because we got a lot of stuff going on. Well, I'm going to jump over into our calendar and show you how shared calendar reminders work. So this here is the concurrent enrollment shared calendar. I can see this, and all of my staff can see and have access to the calendar. When a reminder pops up, we all see it. So on the 15th of April every year, a calendar reminder pops up that says, time to send out teacher application approval letters. Not only that, but here in this calendar reminder, we have the text that needs to be included in that email merge. Also, it has an owner who is responsible for sending this email, performing the mail merge. So all the information is here. They basically just copy that, paste it into the mail merge document, assign the fields, so like the MySLCC username and the S number are assigned using the mail merge system, and then that is sent out. So everything is here, and this is set to reoccur forever, so we never have to worry about it. So hopefully that gives you an idea of sort of how we use the shared calendar to remind ourselves to do certain things. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and let's jump back over to the process map. Okay, so we perform the mail merge, and once that's performed, then we go into our MyCE system. So we come back over here into the back end. We then go over to the teachers section and into all applications. And then once that pulls up, we go into the applications that have been sent, and we mark that the letter has been sent, and we put the date when that occurred. So then next time we run the report, we can see that this instructor has already received their new instructor approval letter. Okay, let's jump back over now to the process map. So that's taken care of. We changed the instructor from an applicant to an active instructor, and then we upload the letter to MyCE so that we know that that's been sent and we have record that it's been sent. So the next step is that the instructor receives the letter. And basically, let me actually jump back here really quick to our shared calendar and just take a look at this content. I know this is really small, but basically all that this letter says is, congratulations, you've been approved. Here's your college username and your S number, and here is a link to the new instructor training. So at that point, the instructor then jumps over to the concurrent enrollment website, comes down here to the CE instructors section, and then clicks on New CE Instructor Training. Right here is a series of videos that walks the instructor through step by step everything they need to do and everything they need to know in order to be set up in our system and operating as a concurrent enrollment instructor. So I'm going to jump back over here now to the process map, and just to kind of give you a sense of what all is included in this instructor training video. So first of all, the instructor learns how to set up their MySLCC account, and step by step it walks them through how to do that. Now each video that they watch builds on the next, so it's important that they watch one, and in fact in the video it says, do not proceed until you've finished completing whatever it is we're talking about here in this video. So the first step is the instructor learns how to set up their MySLCC account, and they go and they get that account set up. The second step, the instructor learns how to set up their MyCE account, and then they walk through the process of getting that set up so that they're ready to roll in our Canusha system, MyCE. Next, the instructor learns how to access Canvas and set up basic features that the college requires them to use in Canvas. Now, you'll notice, again, I said that each one builds because they can't access Canvas until they have their MySLCC account. They can't access MyCE until they have their MySLCC account. And up here a little further, the instructor learns how to sign their agreement, upload their syllabus, update class information in MyCE. They can't do this until they've set up their MyCE account. So each of these is its own video that walks them through the process of setup. Also, so there's not just, like I said, things that they need to do to set up SLCC system accounts, but also there's information. So they learn how to enter grades. They learn about the liaison model and the evaluation process. Also, there's other things that we talk about, such as our purpose and what it is we're trying to achieve as a program. So we give them some basic introductory information about concurrent enrollment in general, about Salt Lake Community College in general, and then we go through all the system setup processes and how things operate. Okay, so now I want to follow this track here and jump over into MyCE and show you exactly how an instructor goes through the syllabus review process, how they sign their annual agreement, and what exactly is the annual agreement, what do we include on that, and then how they update some of their information here and use some of the features of MyCE. I'm not going to go through everything, but I'll give you a quick taste of sort of how we use MyCE for instructor processes. Let's go ahead and jump over here now to MyCE. Okay, so the first thing that an instructor encounters whenever they log into MyCE for the first time, or every year after July 1st when this resets, is the Concurrent Enrollment Teacher Agreement. Now I want to pause for a second and talk about sort of the evolution of this teaching agreement, because back when we first created the instructor agreement, it had like 37 bullet points of there listing all of the things that annoyed us that instructors did. So we created an agreement to say, well, you're going to agree to not do this thing that annoys us. After a while, we realized that it basically did no good. They didn't read the thing. And most of those things that were on there, the world wasn't going to fall apart if they happened or didn't happen. So we stepped back and we said, all right, let's create a simpler instructor agreement that we can actually use to hold them accountable. So we went back and said, what are the absolute most critical things that an instructor needs to do that if not done, the world will fall apart? And we sat down and we went through that 37 bullet point list and we reduced it down to 7 bullets that the instructor is responsible for. But these are the things that if they do not do, then at that point we have no choice but to take corrective action because it's critical that they be done. So the instructor encounters the instructor agreement, they read through this, and then they go ahead and check the box and submit the agreement. Once they do that, they're in MyCE and can begin going through some of those other processes that we asked them to go through. And I'm going to walk through right now the process of uploading and reviewing the syllabus. So in order to submit a syllabus for review, the instructor is going to go into the View My Classes section of MyCE. This is going to show them a list of all the classes that have been scheduled for them. And then they're going to go ahead and click on View Details for the class that they'd like to update. Once that loads, the instructor is going to see a list of all of the students who have registered at the college for the course they're teaching. And then down below at the very bottom, they're going to see a place where they can upload their syllabus. So let me walk you through how this syllabus review process goes. I'm going to jump back here really quick to the process map. So you can see that at this point, the instructor has already logged into their MyCE account. They've signed the agreement. They've downloaded the syllabus file, which they can do from MyCE. Download sort of the syllabus template that I showed you earlier in the CCO, college curriculum, the course curriculum outline. And then they can go and update their high school syllabus or their disclosure or whatever to match the college's syllabus. Once that's been updated, they'll go ahead and upload the file to MyCE. And they'll do that right down here at the bottom by clicking Add Files. Let's jump back over here. So now we're going to sort of scroll ahead here on the process map. And you'll notice it says that an email reminder is sent to instructors to upload any additional syllabi. So the first syllabus upload and review occurs back when the instructor is approved, that we walk them through the step of doing that. But for all the ongoing instructors, they're not going to think to do that until we send them a reminder. So I'm going to jump back again here to the shared calendar, and you'll see here on our calendar we have an item that says Teacher Syllabus Upload Reminder. This is to remind us in August that we need to send an email to instructors to remind them to upload that. But this isn't a one and done sort of thing. We'll send out another email a week later, and then another one a week later, and then another one a few days later, reminding them that the deadline's coming up, they need to get that done. So by the time the deadline arrives, the majority of syllabi are uploaded. Same thing happens with the review process. Let's jump back here again. So once the syllabus is uploaded, we send out an email to liaisons about a week after the semester begins to say, hey, most of the syllabi have been uploaded. You now need to go into MyCE and review that. They have a module in their MyCE system that allows them to download all the syllabi, review those, and then mark them as approved or as needs additional work or some improvements or whatever. And then the instructor receives an email to say, hey, you need to make these improvements. If they do, they make those, re-upload, re-review. Once that goes through and they're all marked as approved, everything is done. This is our process that we use to ensure that the content being taught in the high school is the same as the content being taught on the college campus. Because from a single visit every year or a couple of visits a semester, there is no way to know whether they have covered the college curriculum in full. The syllabus review process is one of the ways that we do that. Okay, now while we're here on the class details page, I'm just going to show you a couple of other processes that the instructors go through to help our program operate as smoothly as possible. So here on the class details page, you'll see that there's a class schedule section. This is where the instructor can enter their class period time and their prep, consultation, or free period. This helps us because we don't have any idea when or which period this class section that we've set up for the high school runs. So this allows the instructor to share with us what specific period that runs. That way, whenever our liaisons or our office are trying to work with the instructor to make a visit or whatever, we know when we can get a hold of them. Additionally, here the instructor can see a list of all of the students who are registered in the concurrent enrollment class. This is registered at the college because remember, this is concurrent enrollment. This is dual enrollment. So they're basically on a high school roll and they're on a college roll. They're getting high school credit, they're getting college credit. And so we need to ensure that the students who are on the high school roll are also on the college roll. So the instructors receive email reminders every few days or week or at the beginning of the semester. They also have a checklist that they can use that helps them to remember to do this. But one of the things that the instructors do is on a daily or every other day basis, they'll go through and make sure that every student that's on the high school roll also appears on the college roll. Because remember, students have to register themselves. So if they don't register, they don't show up on this list and they don't get college credit. So when a high school instructor notices that a student isn't on the college roll, they can go to that student and say, here's the instructions on how to register, get this done. You've only got 5 more days or you're not going to be getting college credit for the class. They can monitor it, the coordinator can monitor it, and in the end they can make sure that the high school roll matches with the college roll and the college roll with the high school roll. Okay, everything else now over here on the process map basically has to do with how we process payments internally. So I'm not going to spend time going through this. But the next thing that I want to talk about, we've talked about some general concurrent enrollment training, but we haven't necessarily talked about content training. So once an instructor is improved, how do they get up to speed on the college content requirement? So now I'm going to jump over to a different process map and walk you through that. Okay, so this is our new instructor content training process. Let's go ahead and zoom in here a little bit to the beginning. So on April 16th, that's the day after we send out the new instructor approval letter, the first batch of those letters, a list of new instructors needing content training is emailed to the academic departments and the CE liaisons. That's the college experience liaisons. Liaison then connects with the instructor to schedule a training date. The training date is then confirmed by the instructor, and then we come back over here and the liaison delivers the new instructor content training. At that point, the question is, how do we document this in our system so that we can monitor and track who's received content training and who hasn't? So I'm going to jump over now into a liaison account for MyCE and walk you through this process of logging new instructor training. So once a liaison has trained a new instructor on the content, they're going to go into submitting work reports. These are the ways that we track all of the work that's being done by liaisons and also process payment. So they're simply going to click on Submit New Work Report. Up here is information that says, before you do a project for the Concurrent Enrollment Office, be sure that you review the Concurrent Enrollment website guidelines. And if I click right here, that's going to take me over to the work report section. And this walks them through, here are the standard types of work, and then here are the typical number of hours that are required or that this job typically takes. They can, exceed that a little bit, but if they start going way over it, we may deny the work report. So it reminds them to make sure to check that. Once they've checked it, they'll go ahead and select the project type. In this case, we're talking about the new instructor training. So they check that, they fill out the rest of the form and click Save Report. Now, as soon as they do that, they'll be able to upload any documentation that shows, what was included in their training, if they have that information, or they can just provide a description here. But once they click that, it's then logged in the instructor's account under their certified courses. So I'm going to jump back over here now. Let's jump back to the back end of the system, and we're going to go into the instructors. And we'll go ahead and just pull up a instructor that's been teaching for a while. And here at the top of their account are all of the courses listed that they have been approved to teach and whether those courses are active or inactive. And then the training date is logged. So as soon as that's submitted, the training date is filled in, and we can then run a report that shows a list of all of the instructors and the courses that they teach and whether they've completed the new instructor training. Now, the way that we run that report, as you've seen before, we simply go into the reports section here. We can go into instructors, and then we can go into the new instructor content training and select the courses we want to run that for. Typically, it's all courses, and then it will open another Excel file, just like the one you saw before, that'll list all the instructors' courses and whether they've completed their training. Now, while we're talking about training, let me also mention that this doesn't just track new instructor content training, but also new instructor annual professional development. Let me go ahead and jump back over to this instructor's account that we looked at earlier. And here on the right-hand side, you'll see whether or not they have completed annual professional development. This also is tied to the work request. When a work request is submitted and completed, then automatically it'll stamp the instructor if they've been selected from the list of instructors that have completed the training. It will appear here on their MyCE instructor account that they have completed their 2 hours of annual discipline-specific training. And how exactly do we remember to remind instructors and liaisons to complete the 2 hours of discipline-specific training every year? You guessed it, the shared calendar, which we've already gone through. Now, I want to pause for a second and just sort of give you some background on annual professional development. So years ago, we used to host an annual event where we would try to do the 2 hours of discipline-specific training. But what would happen is we would have about 60% of the disciplines show up and 40% wouldn't show up. But we'd have 100% of the instructors. So the instructors would show up and they'd say, 60% of them would say, oh, great, I've got a training to go to, I can get it done, we're done. But then 40% would say, well, there's nothing offered in my discipline, and I teach arts, but I'm interested in computer programming, so maybe I'll go to that one. And it sort of defeated the purpose. So, and also the other issue we ran into is that some departments said, well, I want to do mine fall. Others said, I want to do it spring. Others say, I want to do it in the summer. Others wanted to do a large group thing combined with adjuncts here on our campus, and others wanted to do small individual one-on-one trainings. So because we had so much diversity and so many departments preferred different things, we decided just to let them do it throughout the year. So now we have reminders throughout the year to remind liaisons to get their instructors together to offer that training. And then at the end of the year, we have another reminder that tells us to dump the report, see who's completed it, who hasn't, and then we send out notices to instructors and to academic departments to say, hey, you're required to do this. This year, this wasn't done. You need to make sure it gets done next year. So that's sort of our process for ongoing professional development. Okay, we got just a couple more processes, and then we've gone through them all. You have a big overview of sort of what we do down to the nitty-gritty level. So the next thing I want to talk about is the concurrent enrollment liaison, the college experience liaison evaluation process. It's a little different than the content liaison evaluation. Content liaisons, full-time faculty members, when they go out to perform a visit and an observation, it's whatever they're gonna observe for is gonna vary from every discipline. So it's hard to create a one-size-fits-all form that monitors anything beyond pedagogy. So they simply go out into high schools and will sit and observe the class and say, did they teach the content accurately? They did. If their department has a tool or an instrument they use for evaluations, they use that. And then they go into MyCE, into that work request section that I showed you, and they go ahead and upload the observations, the findings. If there's a problem, they have a conversation with the instructor out there and submit it, and they're done. And then at that point, I review, the academic administrator reviews it. If everything looks great, then they get paid for their time. The college experience liaisons, on the other hand, because college experience is fairly consistent across most disciplines, when you look at the research of what constitutes a college experience versus a high school experience, we've been able to develop sort of a consistent form and a consistent process. So I'm going to walk you through how that works. So let's jump now back into MyCE onto the liaison side, and I'll show you how this evaluation functions and works. Now, actually, prior to the liaison performing the evaluation, typically they're going to reach out to the concurrent enrollment instructor and ask the instructor to ask their students to complete an evaluation that the liaison will later use the results of to give the instructor more in-depth feedback. So the instructor will encourage the students to go to the concurrent website, click on any of these three buttons up top, these three links, and then here in the left-hand navigation is a link called Rate Your CE Instructor. So the student's going to go there, they're going to click on Complete the Course Evaluation, and then right now it's closed, but they'll select their class from a list, and then they'll complete the evaluation. Now the evaluation that the student completes is very similar to the evaluation that the liaison performs on the concurrent enrollment instructor. So the liaison, on their side, while the students are out doing this, the liaison may perform a pre-evaluation with the instructor to sort of prime them for the evaluation experience. So in order to do that, they're going to go into MyCE and they're going to click on the College Experience Evaluation. This is where the evaluations reside. So here you can see a list of all of the instructors that the liaison works with. And you can see if there is a date on this column, then you can see that an evaluation has been performed. If not, then there would be no date and no edit button. So to create a new evaluation, the liaison just simply clicks on the Add New Evaluation, and this opens the evaluation form. Now here at the top is where that preliminary evaluation, the pre-evaluation occurs. So they ask questions like, what elements of a college culture have you established in your classroom thus far this semester? How have you helped your students to see themselves as college students? And then also, in what ways do you intervene or coach students when you identify those who may be struggling to meet your expectations of them as college students? Now, if you'll remember from a previous episode, we talked about that for us, concurrent enrollment was really about this sort of transitional experience where the students are both learning college content, but they're also learning how to become college students. So it's something that's sort of scaffolded where the students are eased into this experience. So by, a third of the way into the semester, they are rocking and rolling in knowing how to meet deadlines, how to plan, how to advocate for themselves, how to communicate with the instructor, like all these things that an adult college student should know in order to navigate some of the challenges that they face. So here in the evaluation, we're sort of asking the instructors about how they're doing at helping students to sort of ease in and coach them through this part of the college experience. So this part of the evaluation is typically done prior, but it can really be done at any time whenever the liaison and the instructor feel like it's appropriate to have this part of the conversation. After one section is complete, the liaison may then scroll down here to the bottom and save this as a draft. This allows them to save their notes, but the instructor at this point doesn't see it because it isn't quite finalized, and really no one else sees it at this point. When the liaison then finally goes out and does the observation, here they're going to fill out the observation form. So this is going to include several different criteria, And up here we have a rating key for what constitutes excellent, effective, minimal, and acceptable. And these here are really just examples. This is not exactly what they're looking for. These are just some examples of what communication skills may mean, but it may mean something different for each different discipline. So they'll go through and they'll rate the instructor, but the more important thing is that comments here are absolutely required. The liaison cannot rate without comments. And the reason for that is because if all they do is rate them and don't give them comments, then the instructor doesn't grow. And this evaluation that we've designed here is not about judging the instructor, whether they're a good or a bad instructor, whether they're delivering a college experience or not delivering a college experience. This evaluation is a formative evaluation that is meant to help the instructor grow. So without comments, without feedback, this evaluation is absolutely meaningless. And the instructors we talked to have agreed that without that component, it serves no purpose. There's no reason for them to go out and evaluate the class. So the liaison goes ahead and continues through the evaluation, completes that, and then afterwards the instructor is given a chance to self-reflect on the evaluation so they can view the results, and then they can answer the following questions. Which aspect of your teaching on the day I visited your class did you feel were most effective, less effective? And if you were to teach that same class again and the lesson again tomorrow, what would you do differently? And then also on the day that I visited your class, how well did your students meet your expectations of them as college students? What evidence did you observe that they are preparing to be successful in a college culture? Again, remember that this evaluation is about helping the instructor to improve at delivering the college experience and scaffolding that throughout the semester so that students gradually are sort of eased into that experience. So by, a third of the way into the semester, they're ready to rock and roll when it comes to navigating the challenges of higher education. So this instructor is given a chance to reflect, but this isn't all. If I scroll back up to the top here, you'll notice there's a section called Growth Plan. So once the liaison has had a chance to evaluate the instructor, look at the results of the student evaluation, and also have a conversation with the instructor about, based on what I observed and what the students are saying, what do you want to work on improving? Then at that point, they sit down and they come up with a plan for improvement. Because again, remember, this is a formative evaluation. This is not summative. It's not about making a judgment call on whether the instructor is a good or a bad instructor, but it's meant to help them to grow and to improve. And if you don't include an area where you can specifically list the things the instructor is going to work on, the timeline for when they're going to make those improvements, then what's the point of the evaluation? So then here on the evaluation, the liaison, in collaboration with the instructor, lists specific areas the instructor has agreed to work on improving, including specific steps to take and a timeline for making those changes. And then also they list information, resources, or support that SLCC will provide to support the instructor in realizing the improvements. Once they've outlined that information, we then give instructors a chance to evaluate us, to evaluate the liaison. Overall, how do they think that the evaluation went, and what recommendations do they have for us for improving the evaluation or in delivering the evaluation? Once that is all complete, because this is a formative evaluation, the instructor then has the option to accept the evaluation or sort of deny it. In other words, they have the decision to continue, or they can say, this is great, let's just finalize it and move on. The reason why we do this is because if this is truly a formative evaluation, then if the day comes when the evaluation is going to occur and the instructor says, oh man, last night I was up until like 3 o'clock in the morning because we had a family medical emergency and I was just like out of it. Or they say, we had an assembly this morning and the kids were just totally on one. They're not usually like this. And an evaluation on a day like that is going to be virtually useless. Consider yourself. If you've ever had a day when it's been just a crappy day for you, if someone were to come in and evaluate you on that day on how you performed, it's not going to be a reflection of how you typically perform at your job. And it's not going to be a good evaluation of the instructors on how they perform on a regular basis. And that's ultimately what we want to do. On a typical basis, this is how you do, and here's our feedback to help you improve on sort of a day-to-day basis. So once that is completed, if the instructor says, I want to do this again because it was a crappy day, then the liaison says absolutely. And they simply save it as a draft, and then no one ever has to see it. If on the other hand, they say, no, I feel like that was a fair assessment of how things typically are, they click Save and Submit, and the report becomes finalized. Now let me show you one last thing that I mentioned earlier, that the students go through and they will complete a course evaluation before the liaison does the college experience evaluation. Let me show you where the liaison finds those results so they can either analyze them before or after to provide the instructor that much better feedback. So here in MyCE, we're going to go back to the homepage for the liaisons, and we're going to click on the View Offered Classes section, where the liaison will see a list of all of the courses they're assigned to oversee. They go ahead and click View Details on any of those classes. And here on the right-hand side is where they can view a report of the evaluations. It'll show them graphs, it'll have all the comments the students made, all of the information that we gathered from the survey or from the evaluation, or they can download them as an Excel file and process it that way. So that's how they access the student course evaluations to enhance the college experience evaluation that they're performing with the instructors. Okay, now you've stuck with me so far. We've only got 2 more processes to go through, and then we are done. And you'll have a great idea at the nitty-gritty detail of how we operate our instructor processes. The last 2 I'm going to talk about are the process of instructors entering final grades and the non-compliance process. When it comes to entering final grades, pretty simple. The instructors do it just the same way that faculty on our campus enter final grades. Now, how do they remember to do it? Again, we go back to the calendar reminder. How do we ensure that it's done? Reports in MyCE. We have a report that we can dump that shows all of the missing grades, and then we'll reach out to instructors who haven't done that to make sure that they get those submitted. So that's really about all there is to the grade system and how we enter grades. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the non-compliance process. So what do we do, like I said before, when we have a stinker who's not doing what they're supposed to be doing? Well, I'm going to jump over to another process map, and I'm going to walk you through this non-compliance process. I'll also show you on our website where we post that information. So we'll begin with the website. At the concurrent enrollment website, down at the bottom, under the CE Instructors section, on the left-hand navigation is a link called Teacher Policies and Procedures. And under there, we have the non-compliance process to make this as transparent as possible so that everyone knows the corrective action steps should they decide to be non-compliant. Now, instead of walking through these steps, reading through them, let's jump over to the process map, and I'll visually show you how the non-compliance process works. So typically, the non-compliance process begins when a liaison observes that there's some sort of non-compliance issue in the classroom. Once they observe that there's an issue, then what we do is encourage the liaison to try to address that with the instructor directly. So that happens via a conversation that we also recommend includes steps for improvement and a specific date when that improvement needs to be made. So they work that out together. And then if the instructor complies at that point, it's done, and we don't have to go through non-compliance. If they choose not to, however, then the liaison notifies the concurrent enrollment office of non-compliance, and the non-compliance issue is identified via a report or the liaison notification. So either the director receives an email or a work report is submitted that says here's what the issue is. Either way, the director is notified, and then the director, the concurrent enrollment director, notifies the instructor, the high school administration, and the academic department. That way, all of the stakeholders are now aware that there's an issue. At that point, the liaison then will reach out to the instructor and say, here's the issue again, here's what needs to be corrected, and here's the deadline it needs to occur by. At that point, the concurrent enrollment director works with the liaison to draft up a letter that states, here's what the issue is, here's what needs to be corrected, and here's the deadline that needs to be done by. An email then goes out to all of those individuals, and the instructor then has the chance to make those corrections. If the instructor complies, at that point the case is closed and we move on. If they don't comply, then it comes back down here to the liaison who notifies the concurrent office, hasn't been taken care of. So then the director sends out the second warning, which is the final warning. That final warning, again, goes to all parties. It goes to the instructor, it goes to the high school administration, it goes to the academic department and the liaison. And it says, here again are the things you need to do by the date you need to do them. And if it's not done, we withdraw your approval to teach concurrent enrollment classes. At that point, if this instructor complies, then instead of just saying the case is closed, they then enter a 1-year probationary period where we keep an eye on them to make sure they continue to comply. If they don't comply, then at that point, approval is withdrawn and the case is closed until they one day decide to, repent and come to us and say, please work with me. And then maybe we'll go through a probationary period again. So anyway, you're a real trooper for sticking through and looking under the hood at all of our processes here for instructors. Hopefully this has been something of value. Hopefully this has given you some ideas of maybe some things that you can tweak within your department in the way you work with instructors to make things operate a little bit more smoothly. Now again, as always, I encourage you to post any comments, ideas, suggestions below. Maybe as you've seen some of our processes, you've thought, if you would just do this one little thing, you could probably cut out like 2 hours of work. I would love to hear that, so post it below. And until the next episode, remember again, nothing is impossible if you're resourceful. If you think outside those walls that have been built around you, and if you have the courage to act.